Jake adjusted the straps of his backpack as he stepped off the shuttle and onto the surface of Xyler 9, a remote planet orbiting a massive gas giant. The ground was uneven, jagged rocks stretching out like a frozen sea, and the thin atmosphere shimmered in shades of orange and violet. Jake had been assigned a simple task: investigate the abandoned research station at the top of the ridge and gather any remaining data. It sounded easy enough on paper, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this place held secrets beyond his understanding. The station was massive, a shell of metal and glass that had seen better days. Panels were cracked, lights flickered weakly, and strange symbols were etched into the walls. Jake's boots crunched against the rocky ground as he approached the entrance, a sliding metal door that groaned when he pressed the access panel. A small spark flashed and the door slid open with a hiss. Of course, it would welcome me with a dramatic entrance, Jake muttered to himself. He stepped inside, the air cooler than outside, faintly smelling of ozone and rust. Holographic displays flickered on and off, some projecting faint, unreadable data. He activated his portable scanner, which hummed quietly. That's when he saw her. A small figure darted across the room, too fast for him to get a proper look. Her skin shimmered in shades of violet and silver, and her eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the dim light of the station. She moved with a grace that was almost impossible to follow, disappearing behind a console before he could react. "Hello?" Jake called, his voice echoing in the empty hall. "I'm Jake. Are you alive?" A soft giggle floated from the shadows. Jake froze, his pulse quickening. It was light, almost musical, but carried a strange, knowing quality. He felt like the sound had reached inside his mind. Okay, he stammered, realizing he had been thinking, well, private thoughts about how mysterious and frankly attractive this alien being was. And she had laughed. She had laughed at him. The girl stepped out from behind a console. She was small, no taller than a human child, but there was something about her presence that made him feel exposed. She tilted her head and laughed again, a soft trill that echoed lightly off the metal walls. Jake's face flushed. All right, he said nervously, holding up his hands. "I get it, you can sense thoughts or something." "That's cool, very cool." She giggled again, hopping from one platform to another, disappearing and reappearing with impossible speed. Jake realized she wasn't moving in a normal way. Her form flickered almost like a hologram. Yet she was real enough that he could feel the air shift when she passed. Jake continued deeper into the station, his scanner occasionally beeping at anomalous readings. The girl followed, appearing at odd intervals, always laughing softly whenever he thought something mischievous. He tried to focus on the task, but it was nearly impossible with her giggling in the background. He reached the main control room where a large holographic display hovered above a central console. The data was corrupted, screens flickering with strange symbols that seemed almost alive. The girl floated near the display, laughing quietly. She waved her hands, and for a moment the symbols rearranged themselves, forming a sequence that Jake could barely read. "You're helping me?" he asked, surprised. She tilted her head, eyes sparkling. Her laughter bubbled up again, as if confirming that she understood him. Jake realized that every time he thought something about her speed, her appearance, her laughter, she responded in some way. Not aggressively, not maliciously, but playfully, almost teasing. Jake laughed nervously. "Okay, I have to admit, this is weird, but kinda amazing." He began experimenting. He concentrated on different thoughts, trying not to be distracted by her constant presence. When he thought of opening a locked door, it clicked open. When he thought about scanning the room for hidden compartments, the scanner beeped and a panel slid open. "So you can interact with the station?" he asked, slowly realizing that the girl's laughter wasn't just a reaction. It was a kind of feedback, a bridge between her and the technology around them. She giggled again, bouncing lightly on the edge of a console. Hours passed. Jake explored the station, documenting the strange devices and collecting samples of alien materials. The girl continued her silent company, always appearing when he least expected it, always laughing when his thoughts strayed. At one point, Jake accidentally thought about how much he wished he could understand her language. She paused, tilted her head, and for the first time mimicked words, soft, melodic syllables that made no sense, yet carried a meaning he could feel. It was frustrating and fascinating all at once. Jake felt like he was learning not just about the station, but about the girl herself. She wasn't just a creature. She was intelligent, playful, and somehow deeply connected to the station. As he moved to the observation deck, he looked out at the gas giant looming above the horizon. Its swirling storms cast shadows across the landscape, making the jagged rocks below look even more alien. The girl appeared next to him, sitting on the edge of the observation platform. She looked out at the swirling clouds, then back at him, her eyes sparkling. "You're not so bad," Jake said, smiling awkwardly, "for an alien who laughs at all my private thoughts." She giggled softly, then bounced lightly on her toes as if nodding in agreement. It was a strange moment of connection, one that felt almost like friendship, or at least understanding. Jake realized that exploring this station wasn't just about gathering data anymore. It was about learning, about discovery, and about the strange bond forming between him and this mysterious girl. Each room held new surprises, and each of her giggles revealed a little more about her powers, her personality, and the secrets of the station. By the time night fell on Xylar 9, if such a thing could be called night in a place with twin suns, Jake was exhausted but exhilarated. He set up a small camp in the central control room, connecting his scanner to the station's power grid to recharge. The girl curled up nearby, floating slightly above the floor, and seemed content to simply watch him work. Jake leaned back against a console, rubbing his eyes. "I don't even know what you are," he admitted quietly. "And somehow, I'm okay with that." The girl laughed softly, a sound that seemed to fill the room with warmth. For the first time, Jake felt less like an intruder and more like a companion in this strange, forgotten place. He realized that whatever secrets the station held, they wouldn't be uncovered alone. He would need her help, and somehow he felt certain she would stick around, curious about him just as much as he was about her. Outside, the wind howled across the jagged rocks, carrying with it the faint hum of distant storms. Inside, Jake and the girl settled into an uneasy but promising alliance. Tomorrow they would continue exploring, and Jake couldn't help but wonder what surprises awaited them. For now, though, he allowed himself a small smile, feeling a strange mix of excitement, nervousness, and awe, and somewhere in the shadows the girl giggled again, as if sensing that Jake's thoughts were drifting toward possibilities he didn't yet understand. He didn't mind. Not anymore. The next morning, Jake awoke to the faint hum of the station's systems powering up automatically. Sunlight from the twin suns filtered through cracked panels, painting the walls in orange and purple streaks. The alien girl was already awake, floating near the ceiling, her violet eyes tracking him as he stretched. "Good morning," Jake said, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. She giggled softly, tilting her head as if acknowledging him. Jake smiled, realizing that even after a night of shared quiet, he still didn't fully understand her. She wasn't just an alien with unusual abilities. She was intelligent, playful, and deeply connected to the station in ways he had only begun to explore. Jake gathered his equipment and headed toward the central data hub. The scanner he had left charging last night now hummed steadily, ready to assist him in decoding the station's remnants. As he approached, the girl floated beside him, her tiny hands trailing sparks of energy over the consoles. Every time she did this, the holographic symbols danced, almost as if she were speaking in a language of light. Jake took a deep breath. "All right, let's see what secrets you're hiding." He focused on the largest console, attempting to access the station's historical logs. The screen flickered and then stabilized, revealing fragmented data about the station's purpose. It had been a research hub, designed to study the interaction between intelligent life forms and advanced technology. As he scanned the files, Jake noticed repeated mentions of a unique entity linked to the station's AI, a telepathic being capable of sensing and responding to thoughts. He froze for a moment, then glanced at the girl. She was hovering nearby, watching him carefully, and gave a small, playful giggle. "So, you're the subject?" he asked quietly. The girl tilted her head again, as if confirming his suspicion. She made a series of soft, melodic sounds, almost like words, though Jake couldn't understand them. He realized that communicating with her directly would be challenging, but her reactions gave him clues. Her laughter wasn't random. It responded to his thoughts, his emotions, even the intentions behind his actions. When he concentrated on the console, her eyes glimmered brighter, and the symbols shifted in patterns that seemed deliberate. Jake spent hours experimenting, trying to understand the connection between her abilities and the station, Each time he thought of a question, a possibility, or even a playful idea, she reacted in some way. He discovered that if he focused hard enough, his thoughts could influence the environment around them. Doors slid open, lights adjusted, and holograms shifted to reveal hidden compartments. At one point, Jake accidentally imagined a mischievous thought about rearranging the symbols to confuse her. She caught it instantly and laughed, bouncing lightly across the room. Jake chuckled nervously. "All right, I get it. You're faster than my mind." Her laughter wasn't mocking, it was playful, teasing, and strangely encouraging. It made Jake realize that this strange connection could be a powerful tool. He could learn from her and perhaps even work with her to uncover the station's secrets. As the day progressed, Jake moved deeper into the station. They entered a section that seemed untouched for decades. Laboratories filled with alien equipment and floating holographic schematics. The girl guided him in subtle ways, hovering over consoles, tapping them lightly and laughing whenever he hesitated. Jake began to notice patterns in her behavior, small gestures that pointed him toward important data or hidden pathways. "Okay, I think I'm starting to get it," Jake said aloud. "You're not just sensing thoughts. You're helping me, even if it's through laughter." She giggled, spinning lightly in the air, then darted toward a console that had remained locked until now. Jake followed, curious. The console displayed a holographic map of the station, with rooms he hadn't yet discovered. One room was highlighted faintly, as if drawing his attention. Together they moved toward it. The door was sealed, but Jake focused his thoughts on unlocking it, imagining the panel sliding open. The girl's eyes glimmered, and with a soft laugh the door responded, unlocking with a quiet hiss. Inside, the room was filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with light. Jake's scanner hummed loudly as he moved closer, taking readings. The crystals seemed to respond to thought patterns, similar to how the girl interacted with the station. He realized that the station and the girl were connected through some advanced telepathic interface, both capable of interpreting intention and emotion. This is incredible," Jake whispered. "You're like a living interface for the station." The girl floated closer, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. She seemed to recognize his understanding and giggled softly, a sound that now felt comforting rather than intimidating. Jake realized that her laughter was a form of communication, a bridge between their minds. Hours passed as they explored the crystalline room, decoding its functions. Jake discovered that the crystals could store memories not just of the station, but of interactions, emotions, and thoughts. It was as if the station had been designed to learn from the beings within it, and the girl had become its most advanced link. At one point, Jake paused, overwhelmed by the complexity of it all. "I can't even imagine what it must have been like for you, connected to all of this, sensing every thought, every intention." The girl hovered near him, tilting her head and laughing softly. She seemed to understand his empathy, acknowledging it in a way that didn't require words. Jake felt a strange bond forming, one built not just on curiosity, but on mutual respect and understanding. As evening approached on Xylar 9, Jake and the girl left the crystalline room and returned to the central control hub. The girl's laughter had become less frequent, more deliberate, almost as if she recognized his growing comprehension and trust. Jake realized that he had begun to respect her intelligence, her playfulness, and the subtle ways she guided him. He set up a temporary workstation, connecting his scanner to the station's power grid once more. The girl floated nearby, observing quietly. Jake worked through the night, analyzing data, documenting discoveries, and slowly piecing together the station's purpose. The alien girl's presence made the work easier. Her reactions, her subtle guidance, and even her occasional giggles helped him stay alert and focused. At one point, he leaned back in exhaustion and smiled. "You know, I never thought I'd be spending my time on a distant planet with an alien who reads my thoughts." The girl giggled softly, floating closer. She made a series of melodic sounds, and for the first time, Jake felt he understood a fragment of her words. They carried a tone of amusement, curiosity, and approval. It was then that he realized something important. This station, these crystals, and the girl herself were all part of an experiment in understanding intelligence, empathy, and connection. And somehow he had become part of that experiment, not as a test subject but as a partner. Jake looked out at the horizon, where the gas giant loomed large, its storms swirling in brilliant patterns. Tomorrow, he whispered to himself, we'll discover even more. He glanced at the girl who hovered nearby, eyes sparkling in the dim light. Her laughter, now soft and gentle, was no longer something to fear or be embarrassed by. It was a signal of understanding, a bridge between human and alien minds, and a promise that their adventure was only just beginning. With that thought, Jake allowed himself a small moment of rest. The station hummed quietly around them, alive with data, memory, and secrets yet to be uncovered. And somewhere in the shadows, the alien girl laughed once more, as if sensing the excitement, curiosity, and determination in Jake's mind. For the first time, Jake realized that this was no longer just an exploration of a station. It was an exploration of connection, understanding, and friendship that transcended worlds. The next morning, Jake awoke to a faint vibration in the station, almost like a pulse. He rubbed his eyes and noticed that the alien girl was already awake, hovering near the main console. Her violet eyes sparkled, but this time there was a new intensity in them. Something was different. Jake's scanner beeped urgently, showing multiple energy signatures approaching the station. He frowned. "That doesn't look friendly," he muttered. The girl tilted her head and giggled softly, but there was a sense of seriousness in her eyes. Jake realized that she sensed the incoming presence, even though his instruments could barely detect it. He grabbed his gear and moved to the observation deck. Through the cracked panels, he could see a small fleet of human ships descending from orbit. They weren't his team. They were outsiders, likely seeking the station's advanced technology for themselves. "Looks like trouble," Jake said, swallowing nervously. The girl floated closer, her laughter now quieter, more like a signal than amusement. She extended a tiny hand toward him, and a ripple of energy pulsed through the console. Jake felt a strange clarity, as if his mind and hers were connecting in a new way. "They're coming for the station," he realized aloud, "and we need to protect it. Together." The girl nodded, bouncing lightly in the air. Her laughter, subtle but deliberate, seemed to guide him. Jake took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves. He had never faced an invasion before, and yet, with her by his side, he felt a strange confidence. He moved quickly through the station, using the girl's guidance to activate security protocols. Doors sealed, holographic decoys appeared, and energy barriers flickered to life. Every time he thought of a strategy, the girl responded with a soft giggle, as if confirming that his ideas were sound. The first intruders arrived at the main entry. Jake watched from a hidden panel as they tried to breach the door. As he focused, imagining them being delayed, the girl's laughter resonated, and the door locked tighter. Holographic images of the station flickered, creating illusions of walls and corridors that weren't really there. The intruders hesitated, confused by the shifting environment. "Okay, this is actually working," Jake whispered. "We can do this." The intruders split into smaller teams, trying to find alternate routes. Jake and the girl anticipated their moves, guiding each other silently. She darted ahead, giggling softly whenever an intruder approached a trap, almost as if warning Jake in advance. He moved with precision, activating hidden mechanisms and using the station's AI to manipulate lights, doors, and holograms. Hours passed in tense coordination. Jake realized that the girl wasn't just sensing his thoughts. She was enhancing his ability to think strategically. Her presence allowed him to predict intruder movements, respond instantly to threats, and even create illusions that disoriented the outsiders. Every giggle, every glance, every small gesture became part of a sophisticated defense system. During a brief lull, Jake took a moment to catch his breath. "You're incredible," he said quietly. "I don't think I could do any of this without you." The girl floated near him, tilting her head. Her eyes glimmered with a mixture of amusement and approval. She giggled softly, a sound that now carried warmth and trust rather than mere playfulness. Jake smiled, realizing that their bond had grown stronger through the challenge. They were no longer just explorer and alien. They were partners working in perfect sync. As the intruders adapted, Jake and the girl moved to a secondary control room. The walls were lined with holographic panels displaying maps, schematics, and energy flows. Jake concentrated, thinking of ways to further hinder the intruders. The girl's laughter resonated, guiding his focus toward hidden systems he had overlooked. Together, they activated a series of energy pulses that disrupted the intruders' communication devices. Lights flickered and holograms created phantom corridors. The intruders were confused, disoriented, and unable to coordinate. Jake could almost feel the girls' excitement as they executed the plan flawlessly. "Not bad, huh?" Jake whispered, glancing at her. She giggled softly, floating closer as if acknowledging his words. The tension escalated when one of the intruders discovered a hidden passage leading to the central data core. Jake's heart raced. If they reached the core, they could access the station's most valuable data and possibly harm the girl. He focused, imagining barriers forming, pathways closing, and holograms shifting to block the intruder's advance. The girl's laughter resonated, almost like a confirmation that the plan would succeed. The intruder paused, confused by the shifting environment. Jake moved quickly, activating a final sequence that created an illusion of multiple walls and doors. The intruder stumbled, disoriented, and retreated. Jake exhaled sharply, realizing how close they had come to losing control. The girl hovered beside him, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of amusement and pride. She giggled softly, a sound that now felt like a celebration of their victory. Jake smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He had faced danger, relied on his instincts, and discovered a partnership that transcended species and language. As the intruders retreated, Jake took a moment to examine the data core. The station's AI pulsed softly, responding to the girl's presence and his own thoughts. He realized that the girl wasn't just a companion, she was a key part of the station's systems. Together they had protected it, and together they could uncover its secrets. The girl floated near the control panel, tapping it lightly. Symbols danced across the screen, revealing hidden files and records. Jake studied them, his excitement growing. The station held knowledge about advanced technology, telepathic interfaces, and the integration of intelligence with machines. With the girl's guidance, he could access insights that no human had ever seen. "You're amazing," Jake whispered, smiling at her. She giggled softly, tilting her head in a way that seemed to acknowledge his admiration. For the first time, he felt a deep connection, not just to the station, but to the alien girl who had laughed at his thoughts, guided him, and become his partner. As night fell on Xylar 9, the station quieted. The intruders had retreated, leaving Jake and the girl alone once more. He set up a temporary workstation, analyzing the data they had recovered. The girl hovered nearby, watching, giggling softly whenever he focused on a particularly complex file. Jake leaned back against the console, exhausted but exhilarated. "I didn't expect to spend my mission defending a station with an alien partner," he admitted quietly, "but I wouldn't trade it for anything." The girl floated closer, her eyes reflecting the dim lights of the station. She giggled softly, a sound that now felt comforting, playful, and trusting all at once. Jake realized that her laughter was more than just a reaction. It was communication, a bond, and a promise that they would face whatever challenges came next together. Outside, the gas giant loomed, its storm swirling with brilliant colors. Inside, Jake and the alien girl rested, connected by thought, laughter, and shared purpose. Jake knew that tomorrow would bring new discoveries, challenges, and adventures. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of peace, knowing that he had found an ally, a friend, and a companion who could see the world and his mind in ways no human ever could. As he drifted toward sleep, he felt the girl's presence beside him, her laughter soft and melodic. It was a sound that promised curiosity, guidance, and a bond that transcended worlds. Jake smiled, realizing that he had not only survived the day but had gained something far more valuable. A connection that would guide him through the mysteries of the station, the galaxy, and the unknown. And somewhere in the quiet hum of the station, the girl laughed softly once more, sensing the thoughts of the human she had chosen to guide, teach, and protect. The morning light of Xylar 9 crept through the cracked panels of the station, casting soft orange and violet streaks across the control hub. Jake stretched, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, and noticed that the alien girl was already awake, hovering near the central console. Her violet eyes sparkled, but this time there was something different, a sense of purpose and calm. Jake smiled. "Good morning," he said softly. She giggled in response, a gentle trill that had become comforting over the past days. Her laughter no longer felt teasing. It was part of a rhythm, part of the connection they had built. The previous day's encounter with the intruders had left Jake alert and reflective. The station's AI pulsed faintly, synchronized with the girl's presence. It seemed to react not just to him but to both of them together, as if recognizing the partnership they had formed. "We need to finish what we started," Jake whispered to himself. "There's more to discover, and more to protect." The girl floated beside him, eyes gleaming with understanding. She made soft melodic sounds, almost like words, though Jake could not understand them fully. Yet he felt her meaning clearly. She wanted to help him explore the station completely. Jake activated his scanner and began examining the data core more closely. The crystals from the previous day pulsed faintly, responding to his thoughts and to the girl's presence. He realized that these crystals stored more than information. They held memories, experiences, and interactions. The station itself seemed alive, a repository of knowledge that was eager to share its secrets with the right mind. Together, they moved to the deepest section of the station, where the largest crystals glowed with an inner light. Jake carefully placed his scanner near one of them, and the holographic display shimmered to life. Streams of data flowed across the room, forming patterns that were complex yet beautiful. The girl giggled softly, floating above the crystals. She reached out with her tiny hand, and the crystals responded to her energy. Symbols rearranged themselves, creating a map of the station and highlighting areas that had been previously inaccessible. Jake watched in awe. "You really are incredible," he said. "I don't think I've ever seen anything like this." The girl laughed softly, a sound that carried warmth and approval. Jake realized that her laughter had become more than a reaction to his thoughts. It was a form of guidance, a bridge between him and the station. With her help, he could access knowledge that no human had ever seen before. As they explored, Jake discovered detailed logs of the station's creation. It had been designed to study intelligent life and its interaction with technology. The alien girl had been part of the research, a being capable of sensing thoughts and influencing the environment. Over time, she had become the station's living interface, its most advanced link. Jake paused, considering what this meant. She was not just an alien companion, she was a guardian, a teacher, and a friend. And he had come to rely on her guidance, her insight, and even her playful laughter to navigate the station's complexities. Suddenly, the station's systems pulsed brightly, drawing their attention to a hidden chamber deep within the structure. Jake and the girl moved quickly, anticipation and curiosity guiding their steps. The door was sealed, but this time Jake didn't need to imagine it opening. The girl hovered near the panel, her laughter soft and deliberate. With a gentle pulse of energy, the door slid open, revealing the chamber beyond. Inside, the room was filled with more crystals, larger and brighter than any they had seen before. At the center stood a pedestal, upon which rested a holographic interface. Jake approached cautiously, feeling a mix of excitement and reverence. This is it," he whispered. The girl floated beside him, tilting her head as if confirming his thought. She giggled softly, a sound that made the chamber feel alive. Jake reached out and touched the interface. Streams of light and information flowed into him, revealing the station's deepest secrets, advanced technology, records of alien civilizations, and the ways intelligence could shape and interact with machines. He realized that the station had been waiting for someone who could understand, not just read data, but think, feel, and connect. The girl's laughter echoed softly as Jake absorbed the knowledge. She had been guiding him, testing him, and teaching him in her own way. He felt gratitude, admiration, and a deep sense of connection. She wasn't just an assistant, she was a partner, a friend, and perhaps the closest companion he had ever known. As he stepped back from the interface, Jake turned to the girl. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "I couldn't have done this without you." The girl floated closer, her eyes reflecting the glowing crystals. She giggled softly, reaching out with a tiny hand. For a moment, Jake felt a warmth that went beyond curiosity or friendship. It was a bond that transcended species, language, and even worlds. Outside, the wind howled across Xylar 9, carrying with it the faint hum of distant storms. Inside the chamber, Jake and the girl stood together, connected by thought, laughter, and shared purpose. Jake realized that the station's secrets were no longer just about technology or knowledge. They were about connection, trust, and understanding. The alien girl had taught him to see beyond what was visible, to sense the unseen, and to value the partnership between human and alien intelligence. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Jake glanced at the girl. "What now?" he asked quietly. She giggled softly, tilting her head. It was a sound that carried meaning, though not in words. Jake felt her answer clearly. The adventure wasn't over. There were more mysteries to explore, more knowledge to uncover, and more challenges to face together. Jake smiled. Then let's see what else the station has in store. They moved through the station, exploring rooms they had not yet entered. Each space revealed new wonders, floating holograms, energy fields that responded to thought, and devices that seemed almost alive. The girl's laughter echoed softly, guiding him, encouraging him, and making the experience feel alive. At one point, they discovered a series of chambers filled with alien flora. The plants pulsed with light, responding to their presence. Jake realized that the station was not just a place of research. It was a living ecosystem, and the girl was part of it. She giggled softly as he gently touched one of the glowing plants, and it responded by changing color. "This is incredible," Jake whispered. "It's like the whole station is alive, and you're its heart." The girl floated closer, her eyes sparkling. She giggled again, and for the first time, Jake felt that her laughter was a form of celebration, a recognition of their partnership and achievements. As night fell on Xylar 9, the station's systems hummed quietly. Jake set up a workstation in the central control hub, analyzing the data they had collected. The girl floated nearby, her presence calming and reassuring. Jake leaned back against a console, exhausted but exhilarated. "I never expected to find a friend, a guide, and a partner in an abandoned station on a distant planet," he said quietly. "But I'm glad I did." The girl giggled softly, floating closer. Her eyes reflected the dim light of the station, and Jake felt a deep sense of connection. He realized that their journey had taught him more than technology or science. It had taught him about trust, understanding, and the power of connection across worlds. Together, they watched the twin suns dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the station. Jake felt a sense of peace, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The girl's laughter echoed softly, a reminder of the bond they had formed, the adventures they had shared, and the mysteries they had yet to uncover. For Jake, the mission had begun as a simple exploration, but it had become something far greater, a journey of discovery, friendship, and trust. And as he drifted toward sleep, he felt the girl's presence beside him, her laughter soft and melodic, promising that their adventure was only just beginning. Outside, the storms of Xylar 9 raged on, but inside, the station was alive with knowledge, laughter, and connection. Jake and the alien girl had not only uncovered the station's secrets, they had discovered each other, forming a bond that would guide them through the galaxy, the mysteries of the station, and the wonders of the unknown. And somewhere in the quiet hum of the station, the alien girl giggled once more, sensing the thoughts of the human who had become her partner, her friend, and her companion. Together they would continue to explore, learn, and discover, a human and an alien connected by thought, laughter, and the endless possibilities of the universe.